You're listening to Rep Radio. Our goal is simple. We support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Our podcast breaks the fourth wall to give you an inside look at the plays and the players. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. Today on the podcast, Hummin' Bards talks about the fringe offering, The Hazards of Love, an adaptation of the acclaimed album by the Decemberists. Here is my interview with Hummin' Bards for The Hazards of Love. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I am in the virtual studio with Hummin' Bards to talk about the production, The Hazards of Love, and I will let our guests introduce themselves.
Hey there, I'm Travis Rosemary Fishbach, and I am the director for this production of Hazards of Love.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Al-Dooki. My pronouns are they or them, and I am playing the evil queen.
Wow. Welcome to the podcast. Great to have you both with us.
Thanks for having us.
You.
So tell us about The Hazards of Love.
Oh, the hazards of love. You'll learn soon enough. That's a lyric. That's a lyric from the show.
Well done.
This is the Hummin' Bards' second time doing an album-to-stage adaptation. In this case, we're doing a Decemberists album. The Decemberists put down what I'm calling a progressive folk rock opera that weaves a dark, whimsical fairy tale of love, of betrayal, of loss, and lots of magic, too. We hope that translates to the Front Street Dive stage when we bring it.
And why this album?
You know, I love that question because Hazards of Love has actually had a long history within the Hummin' Bards theater troupe. Between myself, our person playing the rake, Wyatt Flynn, who's also founder of the company, and Buffy Reindl, who's doing design work for this show and has also been a long-time Hummin' Bard person, we've all been talking about the dream of putting on an adaptation of this album for a long time. I dare I say since the company was founded. And to finally get to put it on, it's just amazing for us.
So can you talk about The Hazards of Love without giving it away? Or does it? I mean, like the explanation of, yeah. Can you talk about it without giving it away?
You know, it's probably possible. I can at least give you the opening scene. The show opens on a young woman named Margaret venturing out into, they'd say a taiga in the show. I'll say a forest for our vocabulary's sake. We've been doing vocabulary posts frequently on our socials just to get everyone up to speed. We've all been doing a bit of SAT learning ourselves. She's wandering in the forest when she comes across what seems to be a wounded fawn, a little young wounded deer. But when she approaches that deer, it turns out to be more than she bargained for, because the deer goes through a magical transformation into a half fawn, half man named William. And that might be all I can really give away without spoiling the Tamlin meets Romeo and Juliet sort of narrative of the show.
Okay, so we get the basics. I guess we can talk about process.
Hmm.
Um, let's let's talk about the process of adaptation and adapting an album for this space. Um, yeah, let's talk about that.
Sure. It's always tricky trying to find a happy medium between theater show and rock show. The last time the Hummingbirds put on an album to stage adaptation, we did an album by the Taxpayers called God Forgive These Bastards. And we were lucky that with that album, there was also a novelization that the Taxpayers had written for it. So we could draw from that material for in between songs that were not necessarily narratively driven. What's easy and hard about this album is that all the songs we have a pretty consistent narrative. Like if you listen to the album, you'll get kind of a mental image in your mind of what's going on in the show. Maybe not specifically our show, but if it were a show. But that does mean that all you really have to work with is the text of the lyrics and the music within. So it's been a process amongst the design team and production team trying to figure out what every little thing means. And in Hummingbirds tradition, we do leave a lot up to our players to try to devise what the scenes are going to look like. I like to say that, whoever has the best idea, that's what's going to make it into the show.
Yeah, that has been a fun part of the process, being like, I don't know, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I did have this idea. And then it turns out to be, you're like, perfect.
And Alyssa, we talked a little bit earlier before we hit record about knowledge of this album. How aware of the hazards of love were you before getting involved?
I was not at all aware of this album before. I knew of the Decemberists, and I knew the Decemberists did a good concept album. I just, I like to really put myself all the way into something. So actually doing this play was a great way for me to get all the way into the story and really be able to appreciate it in its fullness. Like any good opera, you kind of have to know the story before you go into it. And I've been really enjoying that aspect of it. And from a dramaturgical standpoint, it's a really fun show.
And so for this album, are there videos that complement? Are there music videos that complement tracks on this album? And were they user
I haven't
preference?
seen any that I can recall. And it wasn't just me doing research on this. It was also assistant director CJ Higgins. Yeah, we didn't find a lot of music videos. A lot of what's been kind of put onto the stage has been discussed thoroughly between me, the players, and other people in the production staff. Because, speaking from personal accounts, I knew about this album way before the Hummingbirds was even established as a theater company. My brother Ian showed me this album on a long drive from North to South Jersey in the dark, and I had the luxury of being in the back seat in a dark car, hearing the album for the first time, and really getting pictures in my mind. Even all the way back then, those pictures in my mind, some of that is what we're bringing to this show. Yeah, if you get a chance to hear the album, it does paint some wonderful music scapes that I think are really prone to synesthesia if you have it. And even if you don't, I'm sure you'll get lost in it anyway.
Yeah, it does sound very whimsical, and it makes me think of there's actually quite a bit of magic in Fringe Arts this year, which I think is kind of fitting. It's fitting for Fringe in general, but especially now because we have been we've been on this intermission for so long that we have been, in a sense, kind of closed off. Even though we can very much get out into the world and do things, we do feel like we're kind of in these boxes that we can't roam as freely as we did before. So it does feel like we are, consumed by a space where we have to imagine and just sort of play make-believe. Which is just just theater in general. So let's talk a little bit about process. Like, how do you? So, okay, you've wanted to do this for a while, since the origins of hummingbirds. But when did you start imagining what this would end up? What this would end up being visually, audibly on stage?
Sure. Well, I do want to say it's kind of funny. As hummingbirds, we try not to adapt a thing unless we have permission from the artists themselves. When we did the Taxpayers album, we actually reached out to the Taxpayers, and they said, "Go for it, have fun. We'll come and we'll live stream you."
Wow.
And that was a wonderful show, that last live stream. With this one, we were hesitant because we had tried to reach out to the Decemberists a couple of times, to Colin, like the main driving force behind the Decemberists, a couple of times. He never really got back to us. But Wyatt stumbled upon an interview where somebody asked Colin, "Are you aware that people have been adapting it?" And he said, "Yes, I am aware, and it's fantastic, and I would love to see more people do it." And to us, that just screamed blanket consent.
Yeah.
Let's for it. That got the wheels in motion, and it just seemed like a really magical, I mean, we've been harping on magic for a while here, but we might as well keep going. A magical way to bring the bards back to live theater. Once we got it in our heads that we were going to do the dang thing, we got to our audition process, heard some fantastic auditioners, hey Alyssa, and then we got everyone in a room together. Well, we actually started with a digital meeting to go through the text, to read through the lyrics, and just to parse out what everyone else was seeing in their mind's eye, what I was seeing in my mind's eye. And then when we finally all got together, we casually sung through it. There was a lot of time for us to sit with the album, sing through the album, and hear it over and over again before we started blocking it. And then once we started blocking it, I started getting the band together, because not only am I directing this piece, I'm going to be playing guitar and some band guitar and a snare drum with my foot for one song. It's not the first time I've abused percussion equipment. But a couple of band rehearsals in, and we had a casual sits probe with our actors, had them come in, kind of stumbled through singing along with the band, and then our last rehearsal, we had a full run, a stumble through, really, with the cast doing their part and the band doing our part and seeing where we need to fill in the cracks.
We can't undersell the band.
We can't undersell the band.
Sorry, I talked over you. Yeah, the band is incredible. Everyone's playing a minimum of 3 instruments at a time. I mean, it's just it's honestly, the rehearsals have been great and we've been getting through it, but I'm having so much fun just watching them perform, and it sounds so good, and it really brings the album to life. And it's been a real delight. I'm so excited for people to watch it happen.
Lord knows I appreciate that shout out. Shout outs to CJ, who's also playing a substantial amount of instruments, and Willow, who is playing their fair share of instruments as well. The one thing I do got to say in regards to how getting it to sound how we want it to sound is we've all, band and ensemble included, have had to reckon with the fact that we are not the Decemberists. It's not going to sound 100% like the Decemberists, and that's actually, in the long run, a good thing, because it's going to sound like us.
If you were a Decemberist cover band, would you be called the Hazards of Love?
Ooh, there are so many cool names and motifs in this show. We might be we could be Ann and Water.
Ooh, that's such a good one.
We could be Willow Bows. Oh, that could be confusing because Willow is playing the keyboard.
Our whole curtain call is a Willow Bows when Willow bows. I got it. We would be called Eye of the Taiga. Taiga. That is the one.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hummingbirds, the Hazards of Love. I don't think there's anything else. It's very clever.
That's great.
Can we talk about some of the characters that that make up the story.
Absolutely.
Because we have one with us.
Word. Yeah. I mean, I've already mentioned Margaret, for lack of a better term, our kind of ingenue protag character who goes out wandering in the woods and finds maybe more than she bargained for. Maybe she finds exactly what she was looking for. Who can really say? We have William, seemingly innocent fawn/man living in the forest and potentially drawing Margaret back in. We're saving you for the last mention, by the way, Alyssa. We
That makes
have
sense.
a roguish rake played by Wyatt Flynn, who kind of shows up halfway through the show to cause problems. And oh, does he cause some problems. We also have two ensemble members that are spirits of the forest who may have a tie to one of the characters. I'm not going to give too much away, but those ghosts might have a tie to one of the characters in the show, more of a tie than you might suspect at first. And of course, how could one forget? We have our queen. Would you like to talk about the queen a little bit? Because I know I could say some things, but I'd like to hear it.
I'm worried that I'm going to get too deep into this queen. I don't know if you know how method I go, but I've just been smiting people. The evil queen is the spirit of the taiga and the forest, and she has adopted William. And so that's as much as I'm going to give away. So I'm scary mommy of the forest.
Yep, scary mean mommy is definitely applicable here. And in that regard, she may or may not take kindly to Margaret's presence.
I always it's always interesting, those stories. There was a series on television called Once Upon a Time.
That show.
That put a spin on all those fairy tales that we know so well, and trap them all in this very interesting, I guess it was a curse that they were in, where they didn't quite know who they were. And so whenever I think about a queen or a witch, we always think of them as a villain, but they are the most delicious character. They're like the one you have to follow. You're like, yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Especially if you do the backstory good. Oh, I was just telling somebody the other day, I went into the audition being like, look, I'll take any character. But when I got the queen, I was like, good. I was like, I don't have to play the villain this time, but I'm so good at it. It's so much fun.
To add to that, I feel like, speaking for somebody who was in the audition process, hearing a lot of people come in, a lot of people sung Queen songs. I don't want to say she's got some of the juiciest bits on the album, but she definitely has the bits where I hit the fuzz pedal real hard.
The villain songs are good. The Rake song is incredible. I love that song.
The listeners probably like, they're talking around this album. It is driving me insane. I just have to go see this.
Yes, you can play it in the background while you're listening to the podcast. Just like, it'll be like a journey. It'll be like, what's the far dark side of the rainbow?
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah. I always forget about that, and that is a weekend thing to do.
Yes, that's a great descriptor.
Actually, today might be good because I think it's still raining.
Yeah, it's a little spooky.
It's a little dampish. I can attest to that. It's a little dampish.
Yeah. So this will be this is presented both in person and digital. And were there any particular thoughts that you had about being in person for this, being that the reason we've been on this intermission has been quite unfavorable?
Yeah, we've it's been a constant process of communication amongst the players and the production team, and a lot of transparency. We've got several group chats up, and we also have more private email chats up if things get a little bit too personal or too uncomfy. about just how we're doing physically. We've had rehearsals where we call it right beforehand, okay, this is a masks on rehearsal, everyone show up masks on. I feel like we've only had one masks off rehearsal, and that was our stumble through with the band and like the live singing with the band. It's been a lot of that, just constant checking in, checking where everyone's boundaries are, like what's the absolute worst case scenario when like you say we need to pull out, and just making sure that if someone's not feeling well, that they know that they can take their time to rest, and we'll jump right back in with them whenever we can.
So take us into the rehearsal. What have the rehearsals been like?
So depending on which stage of our process you came to, if you came to some of our later rehearsals, the first thing that we do is have a little vocal warm-up and a little physical warm-up to get everybody ready to go, make sure they're not hurting their voices, especially for some of those real screamy, belty parts. There are a couple of those, of course, from the Queen, and also for Julianne on Margaret's side, singing really high in her register. After that, usually while that's going on, the band will be setting up because there's a lot of things to plug in. I don't know who decided.
There's so many instruments.
Why do musicians have to deal with so much electricity? But here we are. And then once that's all set up, we just sort of go either from spots that we think need more work or from the top and seeing how far we can get. Earlier on in the process, it was less about vocal warm-ups because we were still singing along to the album itself and timing it out that way. More so to get blocking done and seeing where these scenes take us. Every once in a while, we'll have a rehearsal where the design team will pop in around the corner. Some of the rehearsals are taking place at the home of several members of our design team, Buffy and Taylor. So every once in a while, they'll pop in with, here's a new costume piece, or here's a new cool crown prop for you, or hey, here's the water. And we'll either try to incorporate it or at least ogle it for a bit before we continue on. Other than that, that's the long and short. Of course, adequate breaks and times for water.
Let's talk about the visual expectations, I guess, or because it's magical, dark, and whimsical. What can we expect to see when we get into this space?
Well, I will say that there was mild disappointment among the bards when we realized that we wouldn't be able to do this in an outdoor space. We couldn't find an adequate outdoor space, especially considering we have electrified instruments to plug in. Could have been an issue. But we're really happy to be working again with our friends at Front Street Dive. They've always been wonderful to us. Front Street Dive is, well, you could say it's a dive. It's an upper level of Victoria Freehouse at Front and Market. And, it's like checkerboard floor. One of the walls is brick. So, when you look at that, you don't necessarily see woodsy, whimsical forest taiga. But what we're going to be doing, our design team, amongst others, is trying to make it look like reclaimed forest space. We're going to have some leaves, some branches, some flowers, but we're also going to have some lace and torn fabric strewn about, kind of blending the dive-ish element and the burlesque shows that happen over there and the drag shows that happen over there with what we're putting on, which in some respects could be seen as a melodrama play, especially considering a lot of the characters kind of walk on stage and narrate for themselves. I'm thinking very specifically of William, Margaret, and the Rake in particular. They like to come on and be like, my true love did the thing, and then she came upon a fawn. That's me. So blending the vaudeville with the supernatural forest elements. So there's going to be a lot of play with fabric, with ribbon, and a lot of our costuming is going to involve bleach. A lot of washed out, bleached out looks.
Interesting. Are there any sound expectations beyond the musical elements? Like, was there any Foley, any effects?
We don't have a lot of that, but we do have a rain stick and a thunder can. So that will probably count. There's water is a very big element in this show.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. There's some elements there. I'm just wondering how those are going to be pulled off.
Yes, there's going to be a water element to the show for sure. I will say there'll also be a fire element to the show, but I can't reveal too much about that one.
I'm even surprised.
Oh, Alyssa's finding out new things.
And the music does so much of the storytelling as well with that Foley element. That'll be exciting to hear.
Yeah. I was doing my own little research, and I was listening to the album at the same time. And as I was getting to certain points of the story, becoming more clear, I was hearing those parts of the song, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we love a concept album with reprises and light motifs and dark motifs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what parts of the Hazards of Love speak to you both more, what speak to you more personally?
Well, for moi, the queen has to reckon with, her love for her son, and how she shows that love. And that's something that I think about quite a lot, is how do I show the love to the people in my life in a way that doesn't make me an evil forest witch. Because all good villains are just hurt little babies on the inside. You know what I mean? So to play a villain is a really therapeutic sort of way to think about yourself as like, well, I can have these bad things happen in my life, but I can become a good witch and not a bad witch.
Yeah, the queen is a magnificent presence, and definitely wasn't. Her songs struck me early on. In particular, I mean, I guess partially aesthetically because they are the louder of the songs, and I come from a bit of a punk and metal background myself. But also that confidence in the queen. Like, that is something that you want to carry with you in life. You want to be able to look somebody in the eyes and say, I am the bones of the branches, the boughs, and the browbeating light. Like, ooh, that's something nice to embody. But those hit early on. I find that as the show progressed, I've been drawn a lot to more of the softer side of this album. The Hazards of Love shows up at least 4 times in this show. There are 4 songs called Hazards of Love, and then a parenthetical. Hazards of Love Part 2, Wager All, has been really racing through my mind recently, particularly with an impending marriage on my own part next year. Seeing and hearing 2 characters saying that they would wager all despite the hazards of love, it hits that ooey gooey cream-filled center in my heart.
What are you both taking away from this experience that you didn't intend, and what do you hope an audience will take away from this experience?
Well, speaking for myself, when I went into this project as director, first of all, it was very humbling on my own part, because I was approached on this project. People wanted to know if I was going to audition, what part I'd play. And then the more I talked to the Hummingbirds, the more they were like, you should probably just direct. So getting that vote of confidence from the company is something that I got out of this that I did not expect, for sure. But the other thing that I didn't expect was finding so much more in the material than I had already seen. Because I came into this kind of feeling like, oh yeah, I know this album, I know this material, I know exactly how it's going to look, I know what exactly everything means. And as soon as you say that, you realize you know nothing. I have learned so much from our cast, so much from our production team, and that's what's going to stay with me the most. It's just that you never stop learning. Never close yourself up to finding out new things. Because, I guess, mild spoiler here, I would not have realized that a song about revenge could secretly be a spell in disguise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's the same question.
Think about that. One of the things, I don't know if it was unintentional, it was partially intentional, but when the audition came up, I was personally really excited to, I've been doing theater since I was 11 years old, and obviously there's a lot of queer people around, and it was one of my first queer spaces, but to be in an all queer space doing this show has been the theater experience that you wish you have. Nobody lets you get too tired or worn out, and if you need to rest your voice, you get to rest your voice. Everybody's very caring, and especially in a pandemic, we're all making sure we're taking care of each other, and I hope the audience can see that in the show and can feel that come through in our performances. That one thing the Hummingbirds is great at is making sure everybody feels like they're supposed to be there.
If I can piggyback off of that, I do want to say it's been amazing seeing how much our players check in with one another. There are some scenes in this show that without proper consent checks, they would not be sustainable. But the fact that we're always checking in with one another, that we have backup scenes if there are nights where one or another person is feeling more sensitive, we are prepared. And it feels good to be prepared. It feels good to be prepared for one another.
That's great. All right. So tell our listeners how they can experience the hazards of love.
Well, friends, you can find us on the Fringe Arts website. We also have a Ticket Leap page. I would find, personally, the Hummingbirds, HUM''N''Bards, BARDS, on our many socials. We're on Facebook and on Instagram. And on both of those, you can find a link in our bios that will send you to our Ticket Leap or to Fringe Arts in order to purchase a ticket. No one is turned away due to lack of funds, especially if you use our Ticket Leap page. And you will also have an opportunity to see the show digitally if you sign up for that last slot. We're going to be at Front Street Dive from September 29th through October 2nd, I believe. October 2nd, yes.
That's great. The production is The Hazards of Love, presented by Hummingbirds. And this is part of Philadelphia Fringe Arts in 2021. We will have all those links on the website. You can experience this in person or digitally. You have time. If you're listening to this, you can click those links and join in on this experience. Alyssa, Travis, thank you so much for taking the time to unpack the hazards of love and dive into this whimsical folk rock opera. It sounds so exciting, and I can't wait to see what it looks like visually, and just to be able to experience it in a space. Looking forward to it. So thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We can't wait to see you there.
Thank you so much, Darnell.
Rep Radio is an Emory production. You can find Rep Radio on social media at Rep Radio on Facebook, at Rep_Radio on Instagram and Twitter. For more information, visit us online at em3ry.com. Ride with us. Emory is on the move.